Good. If there is a no doubt, then there can be a two possibility because I am a digital guy. Okay. So either you are getting everything and another way around, nothing. But being an optimistic person, I think that probably you are getting. Yes, any issue if you have, then let me know. Probably I would be more than happy to answer you. Do the randomization create the duplication test vector? Yes, if you use a randomized method. Yes, here actually you are using a randomization. There is always a possibility to go for a replicate. See, over here only 25, then again 25. The 24 is not being generated. Still in the range of 20 to be generated. Even 20 is also not being generated. So there is a possibility that the value would be repeated. Okay. If you want to avoid it, then what you can do it? You can better define this variable over here, number 1, number 2, either rand or randc. That also probably in one of the example that I will explain. But to just give you the answer that with this dollar you rand. I hope I have given you the answer. See, some of the thing is probably maybe I am touching about, but when you go back and try to do some example, this testbench.in is one of the very good slide, very good site where you can get lot of example. There are few more website is also that I will also let you know one by one. Okay, but this website is also good that you can start a playground and try to observe it. If you have any doubt, then I will be more than happy to give you the answer. Maybe any particular time, not it is restricted to during this workshop. Maybe after the workshop, you also have a doubt, then you are welcome. Okay, but to just ensure that you are with me. Okay, try to do some example today with some randomization and try to observe that what you are getting. And if you are getting any issue, I would be more than happy to answer you. Now I am taking a second question, that is Ajaya. For a single seed, will randomized value be different or not? For a single seed, no. No. So if you define a seed, then whatever the sequence that you are being generated. Okay. So I am just going back to this particular example. Now if you see that the seed is 2. Now if seed is 2, then every time the first value is 1, second value is 2, third value is 7, fourth value is 2. Now the value, the way it is being generated, 1, 2, 7, 2, 1, 7, 4, 2, 3, 1, that sequence is fixed. Now once you apply the same seed, the value sequence will be same. Now if you change the seed, then definitely this sequence will change. Or maybe the different value will be generated. As here, actually I have used this particular number, $u number modulo 10. So value anyhow will be generated up to 9 only. Okay, not more than 9 because of this modulo function. But once I fix this seed is 2. So in this particular example, what you can do, change this value from 2 to 3 and just try to observe. So for 2, first observe that you will get the same sequence. Try to change this from 2 to 3. You will observe that this sequence will be changed. So the answer of your question is that when the seed is same, the sequence of the random number is same. Still it is random because you can't predict it. So when first value is generated 1, then you can't predict it, second is 2. After second, you can't predict it, third one is 7. So there is no relation that we can find it out. Then in each which way it is being predicted. But once you give the same set, then sequence is same for a particular. It will not change. And that is actually the advantage of providing a seed. Otherwise, simply no need to provide a seed. Then there is then Hirani is asking what is the need of seed in a practical scenario. Okay, so in a practical scenario, probably let's say that I want to go for some sort of encryption. Okay, and with that encryption, I am generating a key at the transmitter end. So through some encryption, I am generating a key. Now, if I ask you that I have encrypted, let's say that 4-bit key, then there are so many possibilities. That means it may happen that first data is being encrypted with 1 key, second at the receiver end, you don't know which key is applied. So at that time, whatever the LFSR I type to you, probably I can give you the design. But even with that LFSR design, it is very difficult to generate the same key. But that, along with that, I need to define that I have started with my initial seed 1011. Now at the receiver end, when you apply 1011 and you apply 1 clock cycle, after that, whatever the next random number is being generated, that is a fix what is being generated at the transmitter end. So first data you will generate with the key number 1 after a clock 1. Second data, maybe you can decrypt it with the another key which is being generated after a second clock. So that way, so sometimes it will help you, because still if somebody in between, he may not be able to crack your data, because whatever the key, even though he will get that it is a 4-bit key, but it is very difficult to actually generate all these possibly. But I'm talking about only a 4-bit, but usually the key should be in a 128 or 256. So it is very difficult to actually cover all the possibility in some short duration of time. So with the seed, this way you can synchronize your act, that whatever is being generated at the transmitter end, the same way the randomization can be generated at the receiver end, to ensure that at the receiver end somebody will get that I am able to give you the answer, Hirani. Okay. So Harshay is asking about what is the difference between $random and randomize. Okay. Now, functionality wise both are same. Okay. Now, $random is usually I am applying to one particular variable. If I want to randomize a variable, then I will use a $randomize. Okay. Randomize is usually you will use it with some particular class handle. Okay. So suppose I have a one particular class. Let's say one class I have created. I hope you are familiar with somewhat C++. Okay. In a C++, whatever the code that you are writing, it is inside the class. Okay. Actually, in order to understand the system Verilog, it is not necessary that you should know the C++. Okay. Even for my point of view, I also haven't gone through any time C++, but still I know system Verilog. So what are the functionality of C++ which is there in system Verilog that you need to know? Okay. So usually in a C++, whatever the code that you are writing, that is you are writing in a class. Okay. And C++ is considered to be some sort of protected language. Why it is protected language? Because one class wherever you are created, for that particular class function and variable is not easily accessible in another class. If you want to access it, then what you need to do, you need to create a handle of your first class, original class, and from that class you need to access that particular function or variable. Okay. So now when I want to use or I want to randomize something which is there in another class. Okay. At that time, probably I will use the function of .randomize. If it is in my present class, then I have a variable. I can directly use a $urandom function. Okay. Randomization is a method in which through which I am actually I can randomize some handle, or through that handle some particular variable of that particular class. Okay, so this is a minor difference. Otherwise, if it is in a present class, then in a present card $u random, or if you use a randomize, it is almost the same. I hope Harsha, I have given you the answer. Yes. Okay. So anyhow, means there are so many things. Okay, in a system Verilog. So to be honest, just to give my experience, because I have already worked for probably 1.5 years in one of the verification industry, which is eInfochip, that is basically the head office in Ahmedabad, and there are many branches across the India as well as across the different countries. So usually in an industry, nobody actually asks you that you know everything. Okay, so ultimately when you are as a student, then probably you have an exam where you need to remember something, and then in an exam you need to maybe do some learn by heart, or that way you need to actually solve this. Okay, but in an industry, once the problem is assigned, nobody is asking how you are solving. You have a access of ample of resource. Okay, maybe you can go through a website, you can search about that, and you can try to solve it problem. So it is not actually a replicate of your exam in a real world when you do a job. So basically for a verification engineer, there are so many methodology, there are so many functionality of the system Verilog. Even maybe means I have only touched about maybe 30 to 40% of the functionality, not all. But what is expected that you should know that what could be done. For a syntax, always you can go back and you can read the manual. Okay, for a system Verilog manual, if you have look at that reference manual, it is more than 500 pages. That is for only system Verilog. If you change the language, then that many pages are there. Now, actually, when you go for a job, then nobody cares about that whether means what syntax you know or what you don't know. What it matters is you know the concept. Now, always for a syntax point of view, you can go back to a manual, you can refer a book and try to solve the problem. Okay. So even means in our college also, me and actually Saula sir, both are taking a one subject, which is actually formal verification, where I used to cover this system Verilog, where usually we used to go for an open book exam. Okay, because we don't want that this syntax you should mug up. It is just a thing that you should understand that what are the syntax and what are the capability a system Verilog has. Whenever it is required, you just try to read it and try to apply that particular knowledge into your problem and just solve this problem. No need to mug up all this syntax. Okay, so that's why I also urge you to try to understand that what is there inside the system Verilog and what are the capability that system Verilog has. No need to remember all the syntax. Okay, you have a flexibility to go back to a website and just try to solve the problem. Okay, now just moving ahead. I think now slide is visible. Yes, slide is visible. Can somebody tell me? Yes, my slides are visible. I am talking about the verification target capability. No, sir. Okay. Let me share it again. Okay. I hope now slides are visible. Okay. I hope slides are visible. Okay. Now, what are the capability of verification? Okay. Now, just to motivate you, I am explaining this particular diagram, which is very important. Now, if you are planning to go for a VLSI industry, then probably you need to start with the verification engineer. That is the only thing that you can do, because initially to directly go to a designer job, it is very difficult. Okay, so you need to start with the verification engineer. Probably after 3-4 years, maybe you can switch over from a verification engineer to designer. Okay, the simple fundamental is that when you act as a verification engineer, you will find out a different scenario through which you will observe that what are the ways through which the designer is making a mistake. So once you find out that these are the types of the mistake which is being happened by a designer, so when you become actually a designer, then you will try to avoid those kind of mistakes. So because of this fact only, that in a industry, they will ask you to go for a verification engineer. It is a simple case that if I want to be a good thief, then probably I need to start with a job of a police inspector. Okay, so with a police inspector, probably I can get to know that what are the way that actually I can adopt a practice to make a maybe become a good thief. Okay, of course this is just an example, just to make an analogy. Don't take it seriously, but the same analogy is working, that in a verification engineer, once you become a verification engineer, then you will find out what are the bugs, and you will observe that the designer has made this mistake. So with the experience, after that, whenever you become a designer, then you will not create those kind of mistakes, because you know that how or what kind of mistake is being done while somebody is designing, and because of that you will not repeat it. So that will always help you to reduce your design cycle. So actually the efforts of the verification engineer can be reduced by a good designer, because if the designer is good, then there may be a less number of bugs. If there is a less number of bugs, then for a verification engineer it is very easy, because if it is a less number of bugs, then in order to put my effort is also lesser one. Now when I talk about the verification engineer, then for a verification engineer, this particular diagram is very important. Okay, so for a verification engineer, you need to create a verification environment, okay, in order to verify your design. Now if you look at this particular design, then in this design, if you observe that, I am just using some annotation to just explain you this better, that this is my DUT. This DUT stands for design under test. This is design under test. Okay, what is design under test? This is my design. Suppose that I want to verify adder, but this DUT is adder. Okay, this design I need to verify. Now whatever the surrounding block, those blocks are nothing but are designed to verify my this particular DUT. Now whenever I want to design something, so at that time I need to give some input. Okay, so from a driver there are few inputs which are going to my design. So from here there are some input I need to give. So this is my design. For design I need to give some input, I need to expect some output. Now in order to give the input, the module which you need to design is a driver. Now what is the role of driver? Driver role is to drive the input. Now sometimes I need to apply some input combination at the same time. Sometimes I need to apply some input combination one by one. Okay, so that sequencing is being done in a driver. How many inputs I need to apply at a time? For a adder, I need to ensure that A, B and C should go simultaneously to my input. Then to my DUT as an input. Then whatever the output is being generated, that I need to collect. Now role of the monitor is simply as a collector. So it has to collect down So whatever is being given as an input by a driver, it is being collected by a monitor through your DUT. So for a adder, maybe you have provided some input combination. For this input combination, the output is being generated. That is being collected by a monitor. Okay. Now to help this task, so basically these two blocks are very important. Driver and monitor. It is simply your transmitter and receiver. The role of the driver is similar to a transmitter. It has to transmit some input value. And role of a monitor is to receive some output value. Now, in order to help these two guys, driver and monitor, there are some other surrounding blocks are there. One is a transactor. Now, transactor is execute some transaction. Okay. So, what I mean by transaction is that suppose for a adder, if I consider, then for a 64-bit adder, the A is 64-bit, that is a 63 down to 0, that is the one way to define. So in a transactor, ultimately I will define that I have a of a 64-bit, I have a B which is of 64-bit, I have a C in which is of 1 bit. Okay, so in a transactor, I will define my input value along with this data type. Maybe I can define this A as a random value, rand A, so that I can randomize it and I can generate the value. Maybe I can define it rand C in order to get the cyclic randomization from it. So this A, B, C. So whatever the input that I need to provide, see, the role of the driver is to just drive the input. Now what are the input that it has to drive? That has to define in a transactor. Okay, so role of a transactor is just to define some input, that data type. So that is the role of a transactor. So transactor, in a transactor you will define your input and along with the data type, then it will be given as a driver. The driver will drive the value. Now, apart from that, there is a one upper block which is your test. Now this test is nothing but a test case. This test is defined as a test case. Okay. So whenever I will design or verification environment, then usually I will not provide any hardware value. Okay. So those who have actually attended the Verilog class, even means in a SIR class also, SIR has defined some majority voting design, and at that time he has defined some value for an input combination. So when as a verification engineer, when you design, then you in your design you never specify any hard code value. I will define A is a 64-bit, but whatever a 64-bit value, what is it has to be generated. Either it can be randomized, or even if I want to define some value of A which is of 64-bit, I will not define that in this particular block. This in a transactor driver block, I will not define it. Whenever I define a particular value, I think screen is not visible.
Only the slides are coming.
Okay.
Share the screen.
Share the screen.
Instead of sharing the PPT.
Sorry. मुझे बता दिया करो।
नहीं मुझे तो
क्या है? Probably whatever I am writing, that is not visible. I came to know. Sorry. Probably I will do it again.
Now share to share screen. Share. Stop sharing. Now share screen. You desktop.
ये रहा। अभी एक बार देखिए।
Share.
ये शेयर ही किया था।
नहीं वापस share. Desktop.
ओके, ठीक है। Now I am writing something. Is it visible? I have make some red circle to the DUT. Maybe I can see you on my screen. That's why I have observed. Aaron? Okay. Sorry, probably I think you missed whatever I have written. Sorry for that. Anyhow, I will write it down something. So this DUT is design under test. Okay. So design under test is a design. So let's say that 64-bit adder I need to verify. Driver role is to drive the input over here, and monitor role is to collect the output. For my design, I will provide my input value and I will collect the value. So driver and monitor are very important. Okay. What is the role of a transactor? Transactor is execute the transaction. What I mean by transaction? That means for an adder, what I would like to have A, B, C in. These three value I need to generate. These three value all together I am considering as a one transaction. When value of A along with B along with C is being generated, that I am considering as a one transaction. So I need to actually, in order to verify this DUT, I need to generate so many number of transactions. Okay. So I can have a different value of A, B. So A is 64-bit, B is 64-bit, C is C is ultimately 1-bit. Okay, it is a 1-bit. So this is being defined in a transactor. So in a transactor, I will define input along with data type. Then I will pass this value to a driver. Driver will drive this value to the DUT. Through the DUT, this value is being generated and collected by a monitor, which is also as a collector, which will observe the data which is coming from a DUT. Now, when I talk about this particular block, where I have a transactor, driver, monitor, checker, and there is a one block assertion that we will discuss shortly, that these blocks are very important. Okay, now actually whatever this block, the smaller block over there, I will never define any hardcore value. I will only define my input bit along with at what time it should go to the DUT. The hardcode value I will not ever define. Okay, because there can be a n number of cases. Because the possible combination of A and B, 2 raised to 64 by into 2 raised to 64. So that will not be defined. Okay. If I want to define it, something, if I want to change it for A and B, then I will do it with the test. So test you can consider as a control of whatever a transactor has. कि A और B को कोई specific value define करना है, या A B को randomize करना है, cyclic randomize करना है, या फिर I need to give some constraint. Okay, so that all thing I can write it down through a test cases. Now your design can be, or your verification environment is fixed, but you can have n number of test cases. Okay, so in order to verify a 64-bit adder, verification environment is single, but in order to check the different scenario or different possible combination of an input, what I can have a different test cases. Maybe where all the value of A and B are 0, that I consider a one test cases. Where A and B all are 1, then can be a one particular test cases. So test cases you can have n number of time according to whatever the verification engineer wants. Okay, once I define a particular value, okay, then I know that what is expected for that 1-bit adder case. Let's say that I am defining ABC 010 or 0010. If this DUT is a 1-bit adder, then I know that what is the output. Okay. So from here, what happens then? I am defining this way my expected value. For a 101, what is my expected value? Truth table, you know that for a 101 combination or 010 combination, what should be sum and carry? When you actually apply through this path, to DUT, and and whatever the output is being generated, whatever the actual output that you match with the expected output in this checker. The role of checker is just to match the things. He has to match, he should have a two value. One is what is expected for this particular input combination which is generated by test cases, and another is actual value which is generated from a DUT. So this checker will actually match these two values. Okay, so this is a simple concept of a verification environment. Okay, and if you observe it, this verification environment almost is with respect to a DUT. अगर मेरा DUT कल को जाके एडर की जगह लेट्स से काउंटर होगा, तो भी काउंटर में ड्राइवर तो रहेगा, मेरा ट्रांजैक्टर में भले ABC नहीं हो, पर मेरे पास कुछ क्लॉक होगी, रीसेट इनपुट होगा, लोड वैल्यू होगी, सो दैट विल बी इनसाइड द ट्रांजैक्टर. मॉनिटर का रोल भी रहेगा. I think somebody has unmute mic. Please mute your mic. I request to mute your mic, please. So the idea is the verification environment block is same. DUT may change. Now, according to the DUT, maybe transactor have a different input combination. The role of a driver to push the input, the sequence through which it has to push, it may be a different, but the role of a driver is always to drive the value. Okay, so this verification environment module are same, and if I look at, then there are some similar functionality that I am expect from this module all the time, with irrespective of whatever my DUT. ठीक है, कि जैसा कि मैंने बोला 64 बिट एडर वेरीफाई करना है, तो मेरे कुछ चेंजेस ट्रांजैक्टर में आएंगे, ड्राइवर में आएंगे. अगर मुझे 64 बिट काउंटर वेरीफाई करना है, तो भी ट्रांजैक्टर ड्राइवर तो रहेगी, उसका कुछ रोल, जैसे कि ट्रांजैक्टर को वैल्यू कुछ ट्रांजैक्शन जनरेट करना है, ड्राइवर को वैल्यू इनपुट DUT को देना है, ये फंक्शनलिटी सेम रहेगी. इवन मॉनिटर का रोल क्या है? कलेक्ट करना है. काउंटर होगा तो भी आउटपुट आएगा, कलेक्ट करना है. चेकर का रोल क्या है? मैच करना है. तो मैच करने के लिए भी चेकर के पास एक वैल्यू यहां से आएगी, एक वैल्यू यहां से आएगी. सो ऑल दिस आर बीइंग फिक्स्ड. ओके, सो दैट्स व्हाई इन ऑर्डर टू एक्चुअली adopt such practice where I can use the ready functionality which are available. So for that, in a verification environment, they have developed different methodology. So there is a one methodology which is a UVM, that is a universal verification methodology. There is another methodology which is OVM, open verification methodology. What this methodology do? That whatever the basic functionality of this driver, it is ready to use. You need to just adopt that functionality. Now for that, in a C++, there is a concept of inheritance. Okay, what I mean by inheritance? Inheritance is something that I will try to get it directly. Let's say that a simple example that we are at module 3. So this is actually summer internship. So means in this module 3, there are few students are being enrolled. There are few students who is being enrolled for a whole course. Now at the end, when I need to prepare a list, so what I need to do? I need to generate the certificate for all this. So what I will do? I will actually take out a list of the students who is enrolled for a module 3. I will take out the students who will enroll in a module 2, module 4. That actually helped me to prepare my overall list of a whole summer internship. Okay, so module 3, I can directly involve in my total summer internship list of participants. Okay, so that is a simple concept of inheritance. Something is being developed which I can directly adopt in my present system, and that is ready to use. So module 3 participant list, if I have, I can directly put it and I can generate the certificate. Then module 2 participant, I can generate the certificate. So similarly, in a system Verilog, many times it may happen that some class is being developed which have some standard functionality. Now that standard functionality, you can directly use it. And as we talk about that, driver, monitor, transactor, checker role is somewhat defined. What it has to do, the role is defined. So why not to come up with some common functionality? So whenever you talk about any verification methodology, so in a verification methodology, you will find out some functionality which is ready to use. Okay. So in a methodology, you will find out the driver. When you talk about the OVM, then there is a one OVM underscore driver. Now in OVM underscore driver, the driver functionality is to take the value from a transactor to push the value to the DUT. That functionality is there. So you can directly use those functionality. Just you need to call those functions and you can do it. So in that way, you can push your verification process where you can, instead of writing all the function one by one, whatever readily available, you can directly use it. Of course, there is a way to change your functionality. It is not like that only this functionality is available. This functionality you can directly adopt it in your design, and whatever the additional, that you can write it down. So your effort is not starting from the scratch. You have something that you are adopting directly, and whatever is missing, you are writing only those one. So this way you can actually, what you can do, that you can reduce that time, whatever is required for a verification. So for that, the verification methodology is defined. Of course, probably we have not covered this verification methodology in this particular module, but those who are interested, they can always go through it for a verification methodology. Basically, when you go for a particular company, then according to the tool that they have, they adopt a verification methodology. UVM is basically mainly for a cadence. If you have a cadence, then you go for a UVM. OVM is basically for a mental graphic. If you are using a mental graphic, then OVM interfacing is easy. So methodology can be different, but concept is same. In every methodology, you will find out some driver where some basic functionality is there. You will find out some transactor, some basic functionality is there. You will find out monitor, some basic functionality is there. You need to just inherit that class and change according to whatever is your requirement. So that is all about the methodology, and that is all about this verification environment. If you have any doubt, then please let me know. Maybe I can tell more about it. But actually, when you talk about, if you work on maybe a Xilinx ISC or Vivado tool, if you have used, over there, when you create a test bench, in a test bench, you are writing some hard code value. Actually, that is not actually a test bench, that is a test cases. Whenever for an input, I will define some value, then that is defined as a test case. Of course, for a initial beginner, we can consider that test case is a test bench. But actually in a practical, when you talk about the industrial scenario, in a test bench, you never find out any hard code value. When you define a hard code value, then that is defined as a test case. That is not a test bench. Okay. So this is what I want to convey over here. Now here, the important thing that I would like to cover is a assertion. So if you look at that assertion is directly above to your design. Now, assertion is one of the way through which you can verify your design. Now, assertion can be written by a designer also. So designer can also write down some initial way to verify the design, to just reduce the effort which has to be done by a verification engineer. So assertion can be written by a designer, or it can be written by a verification engineer. Okay. So that's why the system Verilog is more popular. Even Verilog is also having some sort of limited functionality which you can adopt for a verification. But this concept of the assertion, which is there in a system Verilog only, whatever we will discuss tomorrow coverage, that is there in your system Verilog also. So with this way, what you can ultimately do is the gap which is there between your verification and a designing, that can be reduced. And if a designer at his end will verify some of the functionality by its own, then he can easily correct it, because verification, role of the verification engineer to find out the mistake, but verification engineer cannot correct the mistake, because verification engineer doesn't have an axis of a design. Okay, so whatever verification engineer role is, he will define that these are the mistakes, then designer will do it. But if designer himself can identify the mistake, then he can correct it at a one shot only. So that's why this assertion having a very crucial role in your verification environment. Now I am just trying to go through the assertion one by one. Okay. So the topic is assertion. So assertion is basically to validate the behavior. So there are two kind of assertion. One is a concurrent, one is a intermediate. So I am just going through directly that what is the difference between concurrent assertion and immediate assertion. Okay. Now immediate assertion is basically you are writing at that particular moment, it is being checked. Okay. So assertion में क्या करूंगा कि मैं कोई condition को impose करूंगा. I want to assert, I want to verify that my A is equal to B or not. So that is the assertion I am imposing. Now, if I use an immediate assertion, then it will check at this particular moment whether A is equal to B or not. While concurrent assertion, it will be evaluated every clock edge. It is not only one instance. Whenever your clock is running at that particular clock edge, it will check this condition A equal to B. Okay. So immediate assertion is written one time, it will be verified and that particular moment only. But in a concurrent assertion, if I write it down, then it will be evaluated at every clock. Okay, maybe it is written by 1, but if your clock is running maybe for 100 number of times. Okay, so I am considering one clock, second clock, third clock. So even though you have written only one time, but that will be evaluated 100 times because you have a total 100 clock pulse. At every clock pulse, this condition is being verified. Now, what is the difference between assertion and your condition statement? Okay, so immediate assertion is somewhat a procedural statement and mainly used in a simulation. Now, if I write down if A equal to B, and if I write down assert A equal to B, now there is a difference. Okay, when I consider if A equal to B, then this is a conditional statement. Now over there, A can be equal to B or A may not be equal to B. I am not worrying about. I am just checking that whether A is equal to B or not. So that is your condition. I am actually never worrying about what could be my outcome. It can be true, it can be false. But when I assert it, then during my assertion, what is my expectation that this should be true? So assertion is something where that for my design, this should happen and I am sure that it should happen only. Okay, like a counter. In a counter, let's say that I am using a counter. In a counter, I have a reset. So when I put a reset on or whenever reset is enabled, I am ensured that whenever reset is enabled, I want to verify that my count output value should be 00, irrespective of whatever other things. So at that time, when I put my reset equal to enable or reset is activated, at that time my count should be 0. That should happen with my design. Now I am sure that this should happen. If it is not being happen, then there is a bug in my design. Okay. So when you use an assertion, then assertion is something condition you are imposing and you expect that this outcome should be true. If it is not true, then it should give me an error. So output of an assertion. So whenever there is a false condition, then you should expect that it should have an error. So assertion is something that I am expecting this should be happen. And if it is not happening, then it should report me as an error. But while I am talking about the if condition, then in a if condition, I am not worrying about output. whether it is true or false. But when I am using as an assertion, then I am expecting it to be a true. If it is not true, then I am worrying about it. So that's why the error has to be generated. So this is the simple difference between the assertion and your simple conditional statement. So for an assertion 0xz, so whenever I am using as a logic, then for that variable, the outcome, if it is a false, then it can be 0, it can be x, this it can be z. So at that time error is being generated. So if 0xz in a condition, then that is a false case. Okay, but if it is in an assertion 0xz is there, then it is an error case, because this is not at all my expectation. What is my expectation? My expectation is clearly I defined that it should be a equal to b. If a equal to b is not there, then there is something wrong in my design, and that should be defined as an error. So actually that error can be having a different severity. Maybe you can define as a error, warning, or fatal error. It is up to you that you can actually define. That we will see actually. Now this is just one assertion. How I can write down the assertion? So I am just now going through a different example through which you will understand that how you can write down the assertion. Now consider this waveform. Now there is a clock, there is a one signal A, there is a one signal B. Now what I am trying to do? I am trying to find out, always is a one statement, this A dot, this is actually name of the assertion. Okay, so you actually do not have to worry about that what is that. This is actually always block. In a always block I am defining an assertion, so that this particular assertion will be evaluated always. Okay, now this is just a label of an assertion. So this can be anything. Okay, you can write down even your name also. So assert A and B. Now what is my expectation? I want that when A is true, then B should be also true. So what I want that A and B should be true at the same time. Now this is my expectation. If this happens, then I am happy. But if this doesn't happen, then I am little bit of worry, because this is not what I am expecting. So anything which is unexpected, it should be reported as a warning or error. So if you look at this over here, then here there is a case that clock is there. For a clock, if you observe that there is a and B. Now when A and B both are 1, then probably you observe that you are getting pass. But where here in a second case, so because of this always, now actually it is being evaluated at every case, every particular age. So now A and B at this particular age is 1, that's why it is passed. At the second particular clock age, if you observe it over here, then it is failed, because A is 1, B is 0. Third clock age, B becomes 1, but now A is 0. So A and B both are not 1 at the same time. Now if you look at the fourth clock, then fourth clock also A is 0, B is 1. Again it is failing. Now you can look at the fifth clock age at this particular time. At this particular time A is 1, B is 1. So now it is being passed. So when assertion is passed, that means this whatever I am imposing, A equal or A and B, that means A is 1, at the same time B is 1. That condition is being satisfied, and that I am defining as a pass. If this condition is not satisfying, then I am defining it as a false case. So along with the assertion, you can define a display like a normal. Condition is true, otherwise it is not true. You can define something like that. Okay. So I hope all of you are with me. Okay. Now there is another type of assertion which is a concurrent assertion, which is very important. Okay. Because usually I would like to verify it for every clock age rather than a particular time. So concurrent assertion is a one where whatever is being defined, it should be evaluated at each and every clock edge. Okay. So in my design, some behavior is there. Let's consider that I want a behavior where read and write signal should never be asserted together. Okay. That means in a memory, suppose I have a memory. So in a memory, at a particular moment, either I can read from a memory or maybe I can write into the memory. But I cannot read and write simultaneously at the memory. Okay. So read and write should not be happen at the same time. But if this I want to verify whether it is being happen with my design or not. So what I will write down? I will write down assert. Now property is a keyword which we will use when we are using a concurrent assertion. Okay. So whenever we are writing a concurrent assertion, in a concurrent assertion we are actually writing a property. What I mean by property, whatever is there in a property, that property is being evaluated at every clock edge. Okay, so usually my digital design will be either positive edge or a negative edge. So either it can be evaluated at a positive edge or it can be evaluated in a negative edge. So whenever I write down a property, then it defines that I am using a concurrent assertion, and with that it will be evaluated at the every clock edge. Now there is another assertion, there is another property which I would like to define. Like simple, a request should be followed by an acknowledgement occurring no more than 2 clock cycles after the request is asserted. Okay, so what I want, that request should be followed by an acknowledgement occurring no more than 2 clock cycle after request. That means मैंने एक बार रिक्वेस्ट की तो वो उस रिक्वेस्ट का एक्नॉलेजमेंट मुझे 2 दिन के अंदर मिलना चाहिए. It is something like that. If I mail you and ask you to join for this particular module, if you are not replying within 2 days, then I am considering that you are not interested to join. I will ask for somebody else to join my course. So once I put a request, then I will wait for a 2 clock cycle so that the acknowledgement should receive. If it is not received, then I will not wait. Okay. So in order to verify this particular property, what I will write down? I will write down assert property. Now I want to evaluate at a particular positive edge of the clock, because I know that my design is being such a way that every event which is being occurring in my design, that is actually in a positive edge. So for the positive edge, what I want to verify, that if request is high, then there is a one particular operator. Okay. So this operator is basically a overlap operator. These are the implication operator. Okay. This kind of operator, whatever is being defined, this is an implication operator. Now there are 2 such kind of implication operator are there. So this I am talking about the implication. I hope you are getting marking, whatever I am marking on the board. Shailesh bhai, is it visible? I am writing on the board something. So this is request. When request is high, so when request is high, what I want, that what is my property that I want to verify? That acknowledgement should be occurring no more than 2 clock cycle. That means I am expecting that the acknowledgement should receive either at a next clock cycle or next to next clock cycle. I will wait for acknowledgement in a 2 clock cycle. So request is high. So this is request is high. If I want to define not request, then I will simply put a tilt. So this is not request. But here there is no tilt. So I am considering it is a request is high. Then this is the implication operator. I will talk about this. But then this is has as 1 2. Now has as is to define a cycle delay. So probably in one of the class, sir has used some semantic, has 20. So what is the meaning of this? By default, the simulator will take a unit as a nanosecond. So 20 nanosecond delay. Whenever I want to define a particular time, then I will use 1 hash. With 1 hash, I can define a particular time. But if I want to define in terms of the clock, then I will use a 2 hash. Now when I use a 2 hash and if I write down something like this, hash has 20. So that is not a 20 nanosecond delay. That is not a time. This is a cycle I am talking about. So with these 2 hash, you are actually defining a cycle. So here what I have written? I have written it with a 2 hash. So what is the meaning of this? That it is suggesting that I am basically interested. I am basically interested in terms of the clock cycle. So this is 1, this is 2. So this is a range that I am being defined. So this range actually being suggests like that I am waiting for a 1 clock cycle to 2 clock cycle. So this is simply equal to hash 11 and hash 112. So that means 1 clock cycle and 2 clock cycle. I will wait from 1 clock cycle to 2 clock cycle to acknowledgement to be high. So here ACKA is there. So this suggests that I am waiting for acknowledgement to be high. So what this property says that when request is high, then I am expecting that acknowledgement should be high. For it is something like that. Request is high, then in a 1 clock cycle, acknowledgement should be high, or at most request is high, then in 2 clock cycle acknowledgement to be high. So these two possibility is being combined it over here and written is like this. Okay, now I am coming back to this particular operator. What is this operator? Okay, so this is one operator I am using. This operator is an implication operator. Now there are two such kind of implication operators are there. Overlap and non-overlap. Just in the slide below it is written that the implication operator is overlap. Overlap is defined like this. Non-overlap is defined by that only this change. Here it is a 1 dash, here it is a 2 dash. Okay. So when there is a 1 dash, then it is an overlap operator. When it is a 2 dash, then it is a non-overlap operator. Now what is the difference? When I consider overlap operator, then for this operator there are two sides. One is the left hand side where the request is being written. One is the right hand side where the acknowledgement is written. So when I consider a overlap operator, then what it suggests that how it connects the left hand side and right hand side, whatever occurs on the left hand side, and I want to evaluate on the right hand side. So that activity should happen from present clock cycle. Okay, that means request is high. Now I am looking for acknowledgement to be high. But now that activity I am starting from present clock. So from a present clock cycle, hash has 1. That is means I am talking about next clock cycle, and has 2. That means I am talking about the next to next clock cycle. So with this, whatever the activity or whatever the event which I am expecting on a right hand side, that is being started from a present clock cycle. That is the meaning of overlap operator. When I say non-overlap operator, then it is starting from a next clock cycle. If I am simply write down like this, okay, let me just rub it. Okay, so if I replace over here with this non-overlap operator, then what happens that request is 1. Then acknowledgement to be 1. It is not starting from the present clock cycle. It is starting from the next clock. The meaning of this is that I don't need to look at for a present clock. I need to look at for a next clock. So from a next clock cycle, 1 clock cycle delay and a 2 clock cycle delay. Actually for that I need to use something like that. Has 0 to 1. That means 0, that means ki same clock cycle. And in a next clock cycle of this. So this means that whatever activity that I want to evaluate on a right hand side, it will start from a next clock cycle. If it is an overlap operator, then it suggests that it should be evaluated in a present clock cycle. So evaluation of my right hand side, whatever is being written, it should start from a present clock cycle. That is for an overlap operator, and for a non-overlap operator, it should start from a next clock cycle. So this is the only difference between overlap operator and non-overlap operator. Okay, now probably with this, whatever the assertion that I would like to cover, that probably maybe we can take it tomorrow, because I think it is already exceeding. But whatever you have a doubt, then probably I will be more than happy to answer you. So tomorrow probably I will talk about assertion, how you can write down the different kind of assertion, and as well as we will talk about the coverage. So two things that I would like to cover tomorrow, assertion and coverage. And these two aspects are very important as a verification engineer. Okay, so that probably we would like to cover it tomorrow. And this is all from me for today. Okay, now as I said that you need to go to website, whatever I have mentioned. This testbench.in. In a testbench.in, we have seen the randomization. So in a randomization, there are some constant randomization, and all these things is being there. So when you just go to our next page, then you will find out some more details about it. This is what actually we have somewhat discussed today. So just try to go through it. This is one of EDA playground is there. You can directly copy this result and try to understand what is being happened. Okay. Another website that you can go through it is ASIC World. ASIC World website. ASICworld.com. ASIC middle school world. Okay. This is a even better website than your testbench.in. Okay. Now if you look at this, on the left hand side there are different tabs. If you want to go for some digital concept, the digital concept is there. If you want to go for a Verilog concept is there. System Verilog is there. System Verilog concept is there. So for a digital, there are different tutorials available. For a Verilog, different tutorial, example, question. Even they will tell you that what are the tools that you can use. What are the different books you can use. Now for a System Verilog, what is our interest? You can go for a tutorial. So in a tutorial introduction, some basics are there. You can go for your random constraint. In a random constraint, what is a random variable, how randomization work, how different randomization, even more details about the randomization is there, so that you can do it. You can just simply go through any particular website. Here the example file is already there. So in a ASIC world, this you can download it. This is there. Simply just copy it, or maybe you can download it and you can just invoke it over here. So this way also you can do it at a different example. If you want to go through some books, so there are some books which is there. So Chris Spear, one of the very good book for a System Verilog is Chris Spear. That is from Springer. So this is very good book. Even I have also referred it few of this chapter. This Chris Spear is one of the very good book that you can actually go at. So here the name of the book is defined. Don't expect that you will get the book. Okay. So that maybe you need to manage it with some other way. Even for the assertion, there is a one book. So actually there are two books that they have mentioned. So Chris Spear is one of the very good book that you can refer. Another book, I am not sure about this book, the hardware verification with the System Verilog. I have never read it. That is for Mintz and Robert, but maybe you can search it out in a library somehow, whether you can get the access of this book. So actually this book, if you go into the market and try to purchase it, then actually the Indian version is not available. Maybe you will find out the price which is more than 5,000. Okay, so there is no Indian edition for this book because hardly any Indian author has written a book for a system Verilog. But I believe that whatever the website that I have suggested, testbench.in and ASIC World, these two websites are the best one. Okay, even means for a ASIC World, it is even better. Means you can even search out the different example that decoder, mux, flip flop, all are there. Verification of the memory if I want to do, then also this. Even means this I came to know because when I joined my company Infochip, they asked me to actually go through a ASIC World and try to complete all the example what is there. So in that way they have asked me to start the training. So this is a very good site where you can find out lots of example for a verification. Basically we are talking about the language. The good thing is you go through a different example, try to run it, try to observe what is being happen. Okay, and try to get it how, try to change the different scenario and try to observe that what it is being doing. So if you are getting any issue with that, let me know, I will definitely help you. Okay, but for today I am stopping it. If you have any doubt, then let me know, I can more than happy to answer you. And if you go back and try to read, I will share the slides whatever is being covered today with you. Go back and try to observe. If you have any doubt, you can ask me tomorrow. Probably tomorrow, if Ravi Kumar sir is not joining, then probably I will take up the session. If not, if Ravi Kumar sir is joining, then probably I can extend my session to a Monday, and I will definitely cover this assertion and coverage part, which I feel that it is a very important for our system Verilog. Okay, that's all from my side. I don't see any question right now, so I consider that there is no more question for today. So have a nice day. See you tomorrow. Bye.